terrified of making the wrong decision? Am I being too cautious, or is this normal to feel unsure when you're buying your first place? How do you know when it's the right time to take the leap?
Just got to do it.
Yeah.
Jason,
Dive
you've
in.
probably bought the most properties.
Well,
or
yes.
been involved with here.
They're all natural human emotions that most, I would say, all first-time buyers probably have.
Wait until you instruct a lawyer because the landlord has 4 weeks to respond.
Have you ever met a client that wanted to act against your advice?
No, not yet. Not yet, no.
She doesn't give bad advice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't jinx me.
Again, an agent will be able to recommend a good solicitor.
Happy?
And when Hanover recommend Harpreet to their client, so initially they call me up. You guys make the introduction.
Welcome back to the Legally Attuned podcast brought to you by Attwells Solicitors, where we have legal conversations in plain English. Today we will be talking about something that has been one of the most discussed topics in 2026, which is the London property market. Today we have 3 brilliant guests. We have our head of conveyancing at the London office, Harpreet, and Jason and Charlie from the London property agency, Hanover Residential. Today we'll be unpacking the current state of the London market, the property trends, buyer behavior, and most importantly, their prediction for things in 2026. So if you're a homeowner, investor, or just curious about the London real estate, this episode is for you. So let's get right into it. For our viewers who don't really know who you are, Charlie, Jason, could you introduce yourself?
Hello.
I'm Jason Goldstone. I'm Director of Hanover Residential. We've got 2 branches, one in St John's Wood, which has been established for 19 years, and another in Temple Fortune, covering Hampstead Garden suburb area. And we specialise in residential sales and lettings, and we've sort of well integrated into the community.
So I'm Charlie. I'm the head of sales at Hanover for the St John's Wood branch. My job is client-focused as well as selling on the ground, so I manage the relationships with our clients. I keep them updated with market changes and how to adapt, figuring out the best solutions for trying to get their properties sold.
That's good. And our head of conveyancing, Harpreet, could you introduce yourself?
Yep, I'm Harpreet. I'm a senior associate at Attwells Solicitors. I manage our Central London office and the conveyancing team. My role is basically to oversee transactions from instruction to completion. And essentially, I'm there to identify legal risks, whether it's leasehold or freehold properties. And on top of that, I liaise with lenders, estate agents, and solicitors as well. And ultimately, I'm just my job is there to identify legal risks and to make the sort of process as smooth as possible.
Yeah, and real estate agents and solicitors do go hand in hand. There's a relationship there. What would you say, how do you help each other in the process?
We talk,
Yeah.
which is just really important.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's communication. It's all just about working as part of a team.
Yeah, I think especially with leasehold transactions, there's a lot of hoops to jump through. We've worked together for a number of years on a load of transactions, whether they're leasehold, freehold, and I've always been happy to recommend Attwells and Harpreet because the communication factor is so crucial to getting a transaction through.
Yeah.
There are always going to be problems, and the best way to get around them is by communicating.
Yeah, that's...
I second that because I've actually used Harpreet for my own personal transaction as well.
Aww.
So thank you, Harpreet. And you got the deal through as well, which is the most important thing. Harpreet and Hanover and Attwells, we've had a long-standing relationship for over a decade.
And what's important from like a solicitor point of view as well is you just want to rely on someone as well just to help with the chasing.
Yeah.
You know, because we don't want to sort of take our eyes off the sort of legal aspect of it, because that's really what's important. A buyer wants to buy a property, for example. Is it safe? Is it legally safe, basically? So it's really sort of handy to have you guys on board as well. You know, Charlie, Jason, could you just please help me with this? And they have helped a lot in the past.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. So, so let's get into it. Let's start broad. What's the big story with the London property market? What's it looking like today?
The London property market last year was very challenging, and it was all down to the budget, the long-awaited budget. We all had to wait 3 months for, and a lot of apprehension, nervousness, and luckily that came and is gone. And I think that it wasn't as bad as people were predicting in terms of mansion taxes and overall the sort of big rises in taxation. We didn't really see that. There was a few things in there, but I think overall it was a pretty okay budget.
Yeah, I would actually agree. I would agree completely with Jason. There was quite a lot of uncertainty before the budget, basically, and it was just quiet. I think like buyers, probably mostly buyers and maybe sellers. Capital gains, is it going to increase, for example? Everything was just in pause mode, basically. But I think it will start to pick up.
That's good to hear. And how would you say the budget is shaping buyer behavior right now?
I think now the budget's passed, that cloud of uncertainty is gone. And I think, like Jason and Harpreet have both said, there were certain things that buyers were waiting to hear about, whether it was a stamp duty change, a capital gains change. And I think the big one for buyers was whether stamp duty would increase or decrease. Obviously, if you would have a stamp duty relief, then you would want to delay making that decision. And I guess on the flip side of it, for a seller, just wanting to see what the market next year could pick up or could do. There was a lot of people waiting.
And Harpreet, from the legal side, what are you seeing?
In terms of the budget or
the buyer behavior? Are people buying more now? Is it going quicker, slower? Are clients, feeling more cautious with their buying?
Transactions are still taking long. I think you guys can.
Yeah,
second that,
the longest that they've ever taken, really.
Yeah, they really are. I think also it just depends on the kind of type of transaction it is. Obviously, leasehold transactions take longer than freeholds.
Yeah.
Often, there's a lot of sort of red tape around leasehold properties now, isn't there? But I often find that if my clients are buying shared ownership properties or properties that are high risks, if there's building safety act, these kind of transactions do take longer. There's just a lot of regulation involved, and we need to ensure that we are sort of taking this into account, making sure there's nothing wrong with the property from a legal side. But they are taking long. I'm not even gonna. You can't sugarcoat it, basically.
I think it's also down to having the information available to you.
Yes.
Sometimes it can take so long to get a management pack, or there are documents that are missing that need to be found. I sold a flat last year where it was under offer before I became involved for a couple of months. The buyer couldn't get their mortgage, which was a separate story. But I then found a buyer almost instantly, having put it back on the market, and we managed to exchange contracts and complete within 3 weeks. And that was starting from scratch, but the information was there, so the solicitors involved could just crack on, do the job, and get it through.
Upfront information is really important.
And what would you say are the steps that buyers should be taking more often before heading into the market?
Well, I think the example I just gave, where the buyers, they couldn't actually get their mortgage. This was through another agency, but my client essentially had legal fees that he would have had to pay for the aborted transaction, which obviously, had the buyers known their financial position prior to making their offer, that could have been avoided. We could have become involved 2 months prior as well, so the time could have been avoided. And so I think it's just making sure you've got your finances in order, you know what your affordability is. Those things can be a massive help.
I would say the same thing, really. Just be prepared, have everything in place, especially the mortgage, the finances. That's one of the main reasons why transactions fall through. If people can't get their finance, so I think having everything in place beforehand is probably the most crucial thing from a buyer's point of view.
So, I'm going to go into source of funds. Most people think it's a bit nosy. I have the money. Why do you need to go into my finances? What do you say to that?
We're basically regulated.
Yeah.
So it's not that we sort of I understand it does seem quite intrusive, but we have to do it. Essentially, what we're trying to do is understand where the money has come from in order for you to purchase the property, and has it basically come from a legitimate source. So if buyers already have in hand bank statements, if they're obtaining a gift, they're basically able to explain all this information as early as possible, then we can basically request this information. But we essentially have to find the trail, basically, and where has the money ultimately come from, and has it basically come from a legitimate source. It can be quite sort of laborious, but it's something which we have to do, and we can't get around it.
Yeah.
No, HMRC will be on our backs if we avoid it, and we'll be punished. It's a prisonable offence as well. So
even if it's a cash buy, they need to.
well, we need to
Even
understand
more
where
so.
those funds
Even
have
more
come
so.
from.
I mean, we deal with transactions at the, for London, the lower end, £350,000. We'll do the same checks with those buyers as with a buyer making a £5 million purchase. It's not from a point of being nosy or intrusive. It's just legally we're putting this transaction together, and we need to know that it's legitimate.
And Harpreet, legally speaking, are they trends or regulatory changes that buyers should be prepared for?
Well, we've got the Renters' Rights Act, which essentially it gives a lot more rights to tenants to protect them against bad landlords. I think you guys probably know about that a lot more than myself.
In terms of the Renters' Rights Act, yes, it's something which I'm dealing with pretty much every day. Got lots of questions from landlords, and yeah, so it's sort of a seismic change from where things were to where things are going.
Yeah, and also just some government changes as well. We've touched on this about providing upfront information. So, if sellers have information, if they know about any major works, for example, because this is pertinent information for a buyer. If they know about this, to let us know as early on, or maybe just request a leasehold pack as early as possible, or, buyers requesting searches as soon as possible. The government have also discussed about the digitisation of property information. So they're essentially basically saying maybe we can have like a digital logbook, which basically has historical and current property data. So it basically has all the information in one. So it's just accessible, just in a logbook, essentially. So the sort of aim of that is hopefully they should speed up transactions. Whether it will, we can only wait and see.
It's inevitable. The process has to be streamlined, and it has to be digitized. The amount of time it takes for searches to get done where they should be done at a press of a button, to find the lease, the title deeds, all the information that any buyer solicitor will want, it sometimes takes weeks to get. Searches can take anywhere up
2 to 3 weeks. I mean, they
well,
should be
and
available
longer.
on the day. I mean,
Yeah.
Camden, it can take months.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it depends
Camden
on the
can take
council.
months.
It can take
So
longer.
all of that should be available literally in a pack at the press of a button. And I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll get there, but unfortunately these things take forever.
But it's also a cost. I mean, a management pack or a leasehold pack will cost hundreds of pounds and that's at the landlord's or the seller's expense. And obviously, if a sale doesn't go through, then it's lost money.
Or if you have a contract pack ready and there's a leasehold pack in there, but most of these packs are only valid for like 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's like they might have to request another one.
Yeah.
Unless they're lucky and they can get up-to-date information. So all these things which are quite annoying.
But again, the future will be real-time information, and I'm sure that, again, computerized, digitizing everything. That will be the future. But we're talking probably 10, 15 years away, in my opinion. So watch this space.
Okay, so if I was a first-time buyer, could you walk me through what my journey would look like from from searching for my property to meeting real estate agents to actually then get into a solicitor? What would that look like?
Go, Charlie.
I'd probably say start by establishing your budget. Speak to a mortgage broker any agent will be able to recommend you with a good one. You know, we deal with these people all the time, the good, the bad, the ugly. I think that will help you establish a budget. Once you know your budget, you can then start looking at the different areas you want to be in and what you can afford there. And you do have to kind of get out there and start looking, figure out what you like and what you don't like. And I think that will help you find the right property. Once you have the right property, you know, you have the information in your mind. I've seen this, I didn't like that. I've seen that and I liked it. You know, you've got the information there in your mind to make that decision of actually making an offer. And then again, it comes down to choosing the right solicitor. Again, an agent will be able to recommend a good solicitor.
Harpreet?
And when Hanover recommend Harpreet to their client, so initially they call me up. Well, you guys make the introduction, and I speak to the client and have an initial chat with them. I try to understand what is it that they want. I try to sort of get as much information as possible, but also I want to sort of pick out any blockers, like what's important to my client. I want to understand that right from the outset. And then we send a quote. We onboard our clients quite quickly at Attwells. And when we get the draft contract back, we basically review everything. We report to our clients on the lease. We tell them, okay, these are your rights under the lease. This is what you need to comply with. This is what you can and cannot do. And then we basically say, oh, by the way, your lease doesn't have this. You know, one thing which I always see in leases is, you know, you need landlord consent for if you've got wooden flooring, basically. So things like that. So I try to sort of tell my clients about these sort of issues early on. We request searches and we raise inquiries. So we ask a few questions about the property with the seller's solicitor. And whilst that's all going on, the client's basically sorting out their mortgage offer in the background, and we're undertaking source of funds check. Once all the inquiries have been dealt with, once we've got the searches back, once we've got all the information, we're pretty much good to go. I think in terms of timings, I mean, what's your sort of estimate in terms of leasehold? I mean, it's taken about 4 to 5 months, basically.
I think the standard used to be about 12 weeks.
Yeah. And it's just increased. After COVID, I'd say.
Well, it's not just that, it's government
and it's all the red
intervention
tape
as well.
as well.
I mean, the
Building
BSR,
safety.
building safety regulations that are coming this year, I mean, that's just, that's a massive potential
That's
delay.
also,
Reason for delay.
just going back to one of your questions as well, in terms of what sellers could do, if they are selling a property within a building that's either 11 metres high or 5 stories, and we know the Building Safety Act applies, they should really serve the leaseholder deed of certificate as soon as possible, not just wait until you instruct a lawyer, because the landlord has 4 weeks to respond.
Have you ever met a client that wanted to act against your advice?
No, not yet. Not yet, no.
She doesn't give bad advice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't jinx me.
Would you say London still remains a dependable property market at this point?
Yes, I think London has historically always been up there as one of the best cities to live in the world. I think there's been a bit of hype around Dubai, for example. I think a lot of people going to Dubai, trying it out and partying and, you know, working, and everyone's going to make their millions.
Not pay taxes or
And not-
less
not-
taxes or whatever it is.
So there's a lot of hype around there, and I think I've heard mixed stories about actually people that live there and have gone to live there, and you know, maybe it's not all it's cracked up to be. Maybe another bubble waiting to burst. Who knows? Let's see. But London has got that stability. It always has. I think at the moment it's had a bit of bad press with the government. They haven't necessarily made the right decisions. I think a lot of the country seem to agree with that. They could have done things differently, or should have done things differently. But anyway, we are where we are. Let's hope for the best, that they sort of turn things around a little bit and give London that boost, that growth that they're looking for.
Yeah, I think London is a resilient market more than anything as well. Obviously, from where we're based in St John's Wood, which is quite an international market. I was out with clients today who are based in Dubai, looking to purchase an apartment in London. So despite the I guess the volume of millionaires who've left London and the UK in the last year, there are still people looking to put money in prime areas where, you know, the prices are soft.
Yeah.
They've come down, and while it's a buyer's market and it might not be the best time to sell, it's certainly a good time to buy. And I think that people see the long-term value in London.
Yeah. Are there any pockets that seem a bit more desirable than others at this point?
I mean, St John's Wood is a fantastic area, but also probably like Hampstead and
Yeah.
these little
Yeah.
villages, or kind of like
Yeah.
they're just dream places where people want to basically live.
Yeah.
But I agree as well. I think London is, I mean, if you can afford a property in London, I mean, of course there's tax implications, you know, if you're a second-time buyer, for example, or, you know, if you want to buy a buy-to-let property, you might get good yields, etc. But there might be tax implications, you know. I still think overall London is the financial capital of the world, you know, is the place where I think is the business capital of the world. It's got the business language, basically.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got top universities here. It's very multicultural. You know, sometimes you've got clients who they work abroad, but they buy properties here for their children, who then come to study here. So I think, you know, it's definitely a dependable market.
Yeah. And as we're looking into 2026 and how things have been going, what is the market going to look like? What's the price, the demand, stock levels? What do you think?
Well, interest rates should come down, which...
They are predicted to come down even further. So I think that will certainly help affordability and give people, buyers, more confidence. And I think a lot of people who were sitting on the fence in 2025, there's no reason to really hang on anymore. And I think now is a very good time. When to dive into the market is obviously that's a predicament that a lot of buyers have, especially depending on their situation. But now I would say you want to try and buy before the market starts going up again. So that's always the difficult thing to have a crystal ball. But I would argue that now the uncertainty is out of the way. Interest rates are on the way down, and mortgages there's some great products out there as well now. So all those things are aligned.
Yeah.
That 2026 should be a positive year.
Yeah, I think obviously last year interest rates held firm for a good few months in a row. And I think that's given the market stability that was needed. I mean, if you think after COVID, when rates were at an all-time low and they started gradually going up and up and up, and then they started coming down slightly. And then I think with the rates holding, I think that gave buyers just that little bit more confidence that, if they are going to go down, they probably won't go down by much. Circa 4% or the late threes is going to become the new normal now. And I think that bodes well for, I think like Jason said, when do you enter the market? And there are so many variables, and interest rates is a big one. I think that's kind of one less worry for a buyer looking to enter the market.
And you work with buyers every day. Is there a trend you've been noticing lately?
Well, I think it's what Jason has basically said, check your finances. I think it's an affordability question.
Yeah.
Also, when I speak to buyers for the first time, they seem to know a lot as well. They do a lot of research online, especially with leasehold properties. They want to know about major works just so they can budget things beforehand. I'm sure you guys get the sort of same kind of questions as well.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the property, obviously. I think with a freehold house, it's pretty straightforward. There are no outgoings other than council tax and whatever work the house needs. When you're dealing with a block of flats, obviously there are service charges which fluctuate year on year. There are loads of different variables. Does the building have any major works coming up? When was the last time they did major works? But look, I think there's so much information out there for buyers. You've got Rightmove and Zoopla, you've got all the sold prices, and just access to information, which I think helps a buyer kind of form a picture in their mind about what they want, what they should be paying.
I mean, speaking on access to information, I think I spoke to Happy about buyers and just the general public or civilians, like I say, mostly do they feel more confident now, especially with the introduction of ChatGPT and AI. There's not really trust in maybe the handing things over to the agency or solicitor. they think that they might know everything. Do you guys have any experience with that, with buyers that think they know better than?
We do, yeah. We do this day in, day out.
Yeah.
I think Jason, I would like to think we know quite a lot about
Yeah.
property in general. I've been doing this for almost 10 years, and Jason's been doing this for decades.
Yeah, 25 years.
So, yeah, I think when you do certainly get the odd buyer who thinks they know the market,
Yeah.
when maybe we wouldn't agree so much.
AI isn't always correct.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just going to say AI cannot be used for research.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things about buying a property, especially something that you're going to live in, is, you know, you can put all the stats out there that you
Sure.
like, but ultimately you're making an emotional purchase. And I think that when I first joined agency, you know, my first boss told me that, you know, a buyer kind of decides in the first 10 seconds whether they actually like a property.
Yeah.
Having been through the process myself of, I guess, being an agent for however many years and then buying my own property, I saw the same. Harpreet will know because she actually helped me with the conveyancing on that. But yeah, there were issues that came up, and obviously I've got my knowledge from being in the industry that I felt maybe there could be a opportunity for a price adjustment. And despite all the knowledge on the internet, I made an emotional purchase. You know, I really liked the place that I bought, and I was willing to take a view on some things. And I think that's an aspect that AI and technology can't replace.
Yeah. And I mean, as much as it is an emotional buy, most of the times, people are finding it a bit more anxious to put their money in the market. So we're going to go into our legally attuned dilemmas for this episode.
Sure.
Okay. Sounds
So
good.
here it goes. Hi, legally attuned team. I'm a first-time buyer. I'm feeling completely overwhelmed. I've finally saved enough for a deposit on a small flat in London, but every time I think I'm ready to make an offer, I panic. Some people tell me to buy now because the prices might go up, and others say I should wait because the market is too unpredictable. I viewed a place I really like, but I keep second-guessing myself. What if something better comes up? What if I overpay? What if I buy now and the market drops? It's taken me years to save my deposit, and I'm terrified of making the wrong decision. Am I being too cautious, or is this normal to feel unsure when you're buying your first place? How do you know when it's the right time to take the leap?
Just got to do it.
Yeah.
Jason,
Dive
you've
in.
probably bought the most properties
Well,
you've
yes.
been involved with here.
They're all natural human emotions that most, I would say, all first-time buyers probably have. And there's so many, well, it'd be good to have a choice of good properties out there. You know, sometimes there's not a lot of choice out there, so choice is limited. Therefore, you have to decide whether or not to dive into that property. But if that person really loves the property that they've seen, what I would advise them is to get a survey, make sure that it's structurally sound, but if they love it and that's half the battle. Just go for it. Obviously, they've got to make sure that they're comfortable in the price that they're buying it at.
Yeah.
And obviously, they need to get good advice from good estate agents as well. You know, that's where we can come in sometimes and help the buyers out in terms of, are you making the right decision? Yes, and this is the reason. These are the reasons why. Like Harpreet said, just go for it.
Yeah, you know it's right because you won't have any doubts or anything. You'll just go, yes, that's it.
I think it's the initial fear of like not knowing what it's like to actually own a property. Is there any such thing as the right buy?
I think the right buy depends on why you're buying. I mean, if you're looking for an investment, then it comes down to numbers. Are you buying below market, or do you have a good yield? If you're buying to live in, then it comes down to, well, do you see this being your home? I mean, between starting my search to buy and actually finding the one I wanted to buy, it took me over a year. Part of that was building up the budget to be able to afford kind of what I wanted. But I needed to. My advice to a first-time buyer would be to look at what's on the market, what those are asking price-wise. And, you know, you've got access to Rightmove sold prices as well. You can see what properties in the area have sold for. And that will give you a good guide on whether you're paying a fair price for what you found. But then again, it comes down to liking the property. That's the first bit that you're going to, first box to tick before you make an offer. And then, like Jason said, it's getting a survey done and consulting your lawyer and solicitor, whose job it is to verify that everything's in order. And I think once you go through those stages, at the end you'll feel a lot calmer because you'll have more information and you have, I guess, professional advice and opinion on it.
I actually don't have anything to add. I think you summed it up very well.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna go and ask each one of you, what's something you wish buyers would stop doing?
Pulling out of transactions.
Buyers would stop doing. I guess just being indecisive or stop being communicative with us, because of communication is key.
Yeah.
You've got to speak to your agent the whole time and just be upfront and honest with them. If you're having second thoughts, then we're there to sort of help, not just I guess from an agent's point of view, it's not always about the deal. It is about building relationships, building trust.
I think from my perspective, I mean, I'd probably just want to just elaborate on the trust. I think that's really important. So trust your lawyer that we want to get this exchange for you as soon as possible.
Yeah.
We have got some hurdles, if there are any, and it's in our best interest to sort of get this to protect you, basically.
Yeah.
Because when for example, if we are active for buyers, I always say to my client that, look, I'm not just dealing with a purchase transaction, I'm also thinking far ahead. What about when you come to remortgage a property or when you come to sell it? I don't want there to be any problems.
Yeah.
So I think trust is really important.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so we are going to say, bringing this down to an individual level, you did say there's something you don't want them to do. What's something you wish that they did do?
Buyers, you mean?
Yeah, buyers or sellers, something you wish they did to make the process easier.
I think from a seller's point of view, just providing that upfront information as early as possible.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think these are very difficult questions. From a buyer's point of view, something that they do
is
get their finances agreed
something
in principle
that they
upfront.
should be doing to make
don't they
the
do
process.
that anyway?
Not all buyers
Really?
do. No, they
Surprised.
don't.
Really?
Yeah,
Some
that-
people don't know how much stamp duty they've got to pay, and then they pull out once their lawyer tells them after you've spent a week negotiating a deal. I mean,
I
yeah,
think no way.
yeah.
And some buyers make offers maybe on multiple properties
Yeah,
as well,
yeah.
and they unbeknown to us, and they make an offer, we get it accepted, and they say no, we found
So
something else,
I think
but
these guys see that more.
we do.
Yeah.
We're on the ground.
Well, obviously,
Yeah.
look, we act for, obviously, we want to get a deal through, but we act for our client as well. And obviously, the people we sell to then hopefully become clients. So
Yeah.
obviously, for
Yeah.
us, look, obviously, we want to try and get the deal through, but there is obviously a stigma about estate agents just wanting to get the money. But I think when you're in it for the long run, you've got to think 5-10 years down the line, and I think that's something that we do quite well at Hanover.
100%.
The amount of resales that we get, I think that comes down to the service we provide and the care that we put into these things. And I think it comes down to one thing that I wish buyers would do is to use our recommended solicitors. We touched on it earlier on in the podcast that a good solicitor can make or break a transaction.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And for us, it's not about getting a referral. It's about getting a solicitor involved who we know is going to communicate with us when there are problems with the transaction, or if there are any speed bumps that are going to tell us what can be done about it. One of my favourite questions to ask, the other solicitor when there's a problem is, if you were in this situation, what would you advise? And then that gives us more information, because obviously we're not legally qualified to advise on these transactions, but we're the middleman who will deal with both the buyer and the seller to try and negotiate a way forward when these problems do arise. And I think that's quite a crucial thing.
I have to say, what I've noticed with these guys is that they always want to understand the legal aspect of it, and I think that's really important for an agent, basically, because then we can sort of try to get to the crux of the matter.
Yeah.
Well, I think for us, we always know that whatever we discuss is going to go back to the lawyer anyway. So I'd rather have one conversation, which I know we've got the kind of legal advice or a position on, rather than agree one thing, a buyer or a seller goes back to their solicitor who then advises them that it's not viable.
Yeah, exactly. And you're saving so much time as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we understand the problems better, then we can hopefully give the better advice and come up with other solutions that on occasion maybe the lawyers don't even think about. You know, for example, indemnity insurance. But Harpreet always thinks about these things anyway. But I'm just
Yeah, I was
talking.
just going to say.
Looking generally, yeah. Yeah. No, but no. Honestly, we make a good team. That's the point of it. A good lawyer and a good estate agent having a good rapport, building a good relationship together, as we have with Attwells and Harpreet, especially, it makes all the difference in a transaction.
This has been a very insightful conversation, lots of clarity, and hopefully more understanding on what the London market is looking like in 2026. Harpreet, Jason, Charlie, thank you so much for joining us, and also thank you to the Hanover team for having such a great relationship with Attwells.
Brilliant. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.